Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight. Hello and welcome to Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom. Today we're going to talk to you about whiskey.
Yeah, it's the Whiskey Rebellion, Johnny. Whiskey Rebellion 2.0, because we kind of recorded this once before.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, it was the absolute best show that we ever had.
This one won't be as good.
And then somebody might have recorded over it.
In my defense, I was made to drink whiskey, which I don't drink whiskey. Don't like whiskey, never really developed a taste for it. And then, so afterwards we just recorded right over it instead of saving it. It's no big deal.
Yeah, well, and for Johnny's punishment, I'm making him drink whiskey again. Now, the first time I treated you to Buffalo Trails or some shit like that distillery, which it was allegedly it was the oldest distillery in the U.S., which is complete bullshit because it's not. It just happens to operate a distillery where a distillery used to exist.
Yeah, the location was the oldest operating, not the actual distillery.
Yeah. So, but this time, Johnny, I got for you. It's Merca small batch bourbon, and I mean
America.
No, Merca. It is Merica. Merca small batch bourbon. So we're gonna try this bad boy out, and I know Johnny likes to hear some weird
ASMR.
Audio.
It's ASMR.
Whatever he calls that shit. The ASMR where people get
This is part of it. You're ruining it.
Oh, I'm sorry. This shit's not coming off.
No, that ruins it. That's part of the good stuff.
God. Hold on.
Wait, this is gonna be good.
Cork popping. Hey, there we go.
That was good.
That was good.
That was good.
Here, we'll get it pouring a little bit too here. We'll go that one for me. Get you. You want about the same amount, Johnny? You probably should have gotten yourself a
I want
mixer.
probably less than that.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's your show.
Well, there you go. Well, it's not my show. It's our show. There you go, Johnny. You probably should have gotten yourself your Diet Coke mixer. You had that last time.
I did have that. I did need that. I think I'm going to try it without. We'll see. Maybe this one will be better. Maybe I've acquired a taste now, and I'm going to love my first taste of America.
So it is aged 6 months, which is horribly short for most whiskeys. It doesn't have a super strong smell, so
yeah, the smell's really not there. So
it is $30 at Kroger's if you guys at home are interested, which is a little bit high.
And also
high
if you
for
have
my whiskey.
Kroger's in your region.
Those aren't universal in the United States.
No, it's a regional.
Oh, I thought that was kind of like a normal grocery chain everywhere.
No.
Well,
Meijer isn't. I think even Meier's kind of regional.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, you know what? I actually have to say that's not bad. Johnny's coughing up a storm. I would say it's not bad. It's if you don't like that harsh whiskey flavor, this is the whiskey for. If you don't like whiskey, this is the whiskey for you.
No, it's very whiskey. Yeah, it is smoother though than whatever Buffalo.
Which is I kind of call that a bullshit compliment to distilled liquors, but because
I'm just saying, as a person who doesn't want it, this one is easier to drink.
It is not. It's very subtle in all of its flavors, which is okay. This is if you wanted to go to a college party and get smashed, this would be okay. Although it's still way too much money.
Any whiskey, yeah. Don't pay that much if you just want to get drunk. All right, but anyway, so we're not here to actually review whiskey.
No, not today. We're here to talk about the Whiskey Rebellion, Johnny, in the United States.
People fought for this.
Yes, they sure did. So this the Whiskey Rebellion in the United States lasted from 1791 to 1794. It was fought between the United States government and the frontier tax protesters.
Wow, so this must have been like one of our very first big... except for the whole
trials,
revolution. After we became a country, the first big hey.
So this is one of the very first big conflicts, and it has a lot of firsts in it. So this is the U.S. constitutional government was formed and it's operating in 1789. So our very first government was the Articles of Confederation, which were horribly weak because it basically put all the power in the states' hands and no federal government hands. And there's this whole thing that we just fought a revolution for.
Right. They
and we're kind of bankrupt because we fought a revolution. Yeah. So they're like, well, we need to redo this and actually give the federal government something to do. So During this whole time period, the government actually, at the start of the U.S. Constitution, had amassed $54 million in debt, with an additional $25 million of state debt, all due to the Revolutionary War.
Wow, that's not a whole lot of debt for our government to be in.
Well, except that when you cover the inflation, it's approximately $1.2 trillion today, so it actually is a pretty good. It's a pretty good amount of debt.
I think we're probably still over that, aren't we?
Oh yeah, I think we're at like 22 trillion or whatever it is. But
so even so,
this is like 2 years into the whole like we won our independence.
Chapter 1 with your country is
$1.2 trillion in debt. So kind of what we are today. Like we've never learned our lesson 200 years later.
You know how it is when you get in debt. You're just making the minimum payments and you never pay anything off, and it just keeps
and then
building.
Credit card companies keep offering you new credit cards with higher APRs, and you're like, well, why not?
We'll just print more money.
Which is exactly what the government is proposing to do with our current stimulus bill, but whatever. So obviously the government has a big problem, or at least we think it has a big problem, although I don't know how much they cared about it. But insert Alexander Hamilton. So he comes into the scene. He was born out of wedlock and would become one of the military commanders during the Revolutionary War.
Man, he sounds like he had an interesting life.
Yeah, he was also a legal scholar, American statesman, lawyer, banker, economist, politician, and would establish the National Bank of the U.S. and develop the whole U.S. economic system. So,
I'll bet you could write a pretty good play or musical based around his life.
Yeah, I think somebody did.
Could be successful.
Haven't seen it. Yeah. Don't know.
Feather in the cap.
Yep. But hey, he's responsible for our current economic system as well, because our whole system's based on what he did. So
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Worked out well.
For success.
So
some people are winning the game.
And what I don't think is in the play, but maybe it is. I don't know. I have not seen it. He was also killed by Vice President Burr in 1804 in a duel. So
nice. So this was legal, I assume, then?
Well, no, it wasn't.
What?
Nope, sure wasn't.
It sounds like a gentleman's duel.
Well, it was illegal in New Jersey and New York. Oh wait, it was illegal in New York, so they went to New Jersey to do it.
Okay,
but it was
legal.
But it was still illegal.
What?
Burr actually got charged with murder, but then was acquitted because they were like, "Meh, you're the vice president. Go figure. Politicians can do whatever they want."
Yeah, how about that?
So
nothing's changed.
So Hamilton came onto the scene. He had a plan that was twofold. First, he would consolidate the federal and state debt into one single federal debt. Said by the end of July of 1790, the government's responsible for everything.
Consolidate your loans.
Yep. Smart. His second was to start import taxes, or he had import taxes already in place, but they were kind of at that maximum feasible level. So basically anything coming into the United States would have a tax.
Yeah.
Anything produced in the United States was tax-free. But at this point,
your tax encourage people to
produce here,
buy here too, and produce and buy.
But the taxes at that incoming level was about as high as you can get feasibly before people start getting a little pissy.
Yeah.
So he proposed an excise tax on all domestically produced distilled spirits. So that's anything that's distilled will have a tax onto it. At the distiller level. So
taxing the liquor.
Yep, we're taxing the liquor. Whiskey was the most common and popular beverage in the United States at the time, and probably even still now.
No, really, this is
for distilled liquors in the United States. I guarantee you, whiskey is probably the most.
Ugh. I don't know why.
Johnny hates it, but I'm in heaven right now. I love it.
But the more you drink, the better it gets. So.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what the theory.
That's the theory.
It's not panned out so far.
So it became known as the whiskey tax because it was the most popular beverage. Supporters of the social reform thought that this was a good sin tax, quote unquote, that could raise awareness for harmful effects of alcohol and encourage people not to drink. So a little bit of prohibition, pre-prohibition, and spoiler alert, totally didn't work.
So from the very beginning, our government was like, maybe we can discourage people from drinking. No, they're going to do it. Okay. All right, fine.
Yep.
But maybe if we just outlaw it, they're going to do it.
Nope, they're still going to do it anyways. They're going
to invent one of the most boring sports in the world because of it. Okay.
Great. NASCAR. We turn left.
I'm going to turn left again.
But Johnny, come on. Because of whiskey, we have Luke Bryan's greatest song. Rain makes that corn.
Oh God.
Corn makes that whiskey.
Oh.
Whiskey makes my girl a little frisky.
You're going to get us fined.
I am going to get us fined because Luke Bryan is totally listening to the show. So this proposed law became in effect in March 1791. And in November, George Washington himself set revenue districts, appointed revenue supervisors and inspectors, and set their pay. So basically, he created a tax agency
he gave tax collectors jobs.
Yeah, he gave
or created tax
making
collectors.
jobs. So if anything, that's a good platform, right?
Yep.
But not everybody was super happy about this whole whiskey tax thing.
You don't say.
And there were a few grievances to the whiskey law.
Like having to pay more money to
do something that you were
previously doing for not that money.
Right.
Shocking that people would be upset when somebody comes in and tells them, "Hey, you know that thing you've always been doing? Yeah, you're gonna have to start paying us for
it." Yeah. So a little bit about the law itself. It would be on the manufacturing of the distilled liquors itself. So it wouldn't be on necessarily the purchase of the liquor, but like on the distribution of it, the manufacturing of it. So the manufacturer would pay it, which of course
then goes to the consumer.
Consumer, because he's jacking up the prices.
Yeah. Yep. Now it's 50 cents more a bottle or whatever.
And this tax could be paid of one of two ways. It was either a flat 9 cents per gallon tax.
Okay.
So you pay by the gallon, or you have a flat one-time fee, which promoted large production and favored the large distilleries in the East over the mom and pop shops of the West, which could get the tax down to as low as 4 to 5 cents per gallon, depending on how much you produce.
Yeah, you purchase in advance and you get to get half off.
Yeah, which is not something that a small distiller who's making 2 or 3 gallons a year is going to be able to do.
Right. And therein lies the problem.
Yes, for the small batch guys. So this Merca that prides itself on being small batch.
Yeah, they would have been.
They're screwed. They're hosed.
They're paying 9 cents a gallon.
They sure are.
Which is then going to consumer, by the way. So you're paying 9 cents.
Yes, you're definitely paying the 9 cents. All the stills had to be registered. And, well, you know what? That's the first step towards confiscation, Johnny.
Well, I mean,
we don't register our guns because we don't want the government to know we have them. So we're not going to register our whiskey.
Why do you need to register something if it's not for them to come and take away from you later?
Exactly.
All that is saying, hey, everybody make an inventory checklist of all the things that I can take from you.
And failures to comply to all of these laws, whether you're not paying the taxes or you're not registering your still, meant that you had to appear in a federal court, not your local courts. So to give an idea of the distance here, Philadelphia is 300 miles from the frontier of Pittsburgh at this time, which is hilarious to think that Pittsburgh was ever a frontier, but it's sure a frontier. So if you're a small batch distiller out in the West, you're having to travel at least 300 miles to go to to Philadelphia to go to the federal court, which is
certainly easy in 1791.
Yes, exactly. So obviously the western parts of the United States had some scotch bit of grievances, little upset here. Yeah. They first claimed that the tax was unfairly targeted at them, which yep. It sure was.
That's a fair grievance.
It was definitely a fair grievance. Western farmers, mostly, particularly this was hard for them because most of the Western farmers would actually turn the excess grain into whiskey as it lasted longer and was easier to transport over the mountains. We have the whole little Appalachian Mountain thing that's there over in West Virginia.
Yeah.
We kind of need to transport it over. It's easier to do that with actual liquor as opposed to
to supply them with the grain to make the liquor.
Yep, exactly. And most stills that were out in the West produced small batches because they weren't operating year round. This was just, I have excess grain. I'm going to turn it into liquor for some profits.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't sell this, so instead of letting it go to waste or trying to ship it, we'll make it smaller and get people drunk with it.
Exactly, because there's not a lot to do out in the West in 90s.
Man, I'm feeling that. There's not a lot to do during this quarantine in 2020.
Very much so. Whiskey was also cheaper in the West, so the tax rate, even if it was the same as the large distillers, even if they're paying 5 cents per gallon, it's at a higher level to the West because whiskey was cheaper in the West, so it's higher on their profit margins.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's taking a bigger chunk out of what they're bringing in anyway.
Exactly.
Or even able to sell it for, because if they, you can say just raise the prices, but people might not pay
People might not want to pay it.
Except for things like liquor. Turns out people pay whatever.
I paid $30 for this bottle of whiskey, which is not my favorite. But I did buy, not that long ago, I bought a bottle of Hammer or Sickle and Hammer or something. I bought it because it looked like Russian cool.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it was dog shit. It was awful.
You mean the communist whiskey that you bought.
Yeah, commies can't make the whiskey. It did come in a cool bottle though that I can reuse for like reenactments and stuff.
Oh well, there you go. Fill it with good whiskey.
Yeah. Cash was in short supply in the West during this time frame, so whiskey was often used as a medium of exchange. So to the poor, this became an income tax.
Yeah.
Also, reason to get up in arms. Forcing violators.
I always forget how big trade was.
Yeah, the cash wasn't a normal thing at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, you always think because I don't know, you think about it and you're like, oh well, money existed and so everybody was using it.
Yeah, but even at this time, the Federal Reserve Bank doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So there isn't a federal there isn't a standard U.S. currency.
So is it a state by state?
It's a state by state. Yeah.
So coins or cash or whatever.
Coins and cash. Yeah. Yep. So violators that didn't want to pay the tax or didn't want to register, they had to appear in federal court. We kind of talked about that earlier, but since it's 300 miles away, this would damn near bankrupt a poor farmer to have to travel 300 miles
just to go to the court date.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they're just not going to.
You can't get people to go downtown Indianapolis for a court date. They're 20 minutes away and they're missing court dates.
Yeah, they're definitely not traveling 300 miles to do it. And the Westerners felt that what the hell was the government even doing for them anyways at this point in time, because those dirty damn Indians were invading their land.
And they're not sending the armies out to kill them all?
They're not, yeah. Specifically, there was the Northwest Indian Wars that were going on at this time frame, which had multiple major losses in 1791 for the U.S.
Yeah.
So the Westerners were kind of on their own.
Well, that's weird that we would just go and invade this empty frontier and then people would get mad at it and start attacking us.
But Johnny, they don't look like us.
Where did they even come from?
Right?
That's strange.
And lastly, but most importantly, we didn't just fight a war over taxation without representation for nothing. And here we have
be taxed without representation.
and very much so, because everybody in Kentucky at this point was a territory, not a state. So they're legitimately being taxed without being represented. So they're definitely like, screw this shit, we're not doing it.
Like, guys, do you not remember 15 years ago?
It wasn't even 50. It's like, do you not remember 5 years ago when we were involved in this shit? So, Johnny, can you guess what happened?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and guess that they just didn't pay.
You got the nose on the head there.
Like, what? Did they set up PayPal or something? Have people wire them money? You have to send somebody, right?
Yeah. And Washington tried to do that. George Washington,
old-timey tax collectors.
Yeah, George Washington sent some old-timey tax collectors out there. So
how did the cities take to those old-timey tax collectors demanding money for nothing?
Almost immediately, protests started beginning. So before the law was even passed, there was resistance to it. But once the law was passed, there was a group of Westerners in Pennsylvania, that had that were like, we're not going to deal with this shit. Yeah. So they held a meeting on July 27th, 1791, at the Redstone Old Fort, which is an Indian War fort in Pennsylvania. The result of that meeting was that delegates from the upset counties would convene in Pittsburgh in 1791. So they're basically like, look, we're going to have a meeting in September. You all bring your delegates to come to it. So it's almost like a mini revolution that's going on here.
Okay.
So same thing that we did with our, Continental Congress. Same thing. Yeah, you have your grievances. Vote somebody in to come and speak for you.
Okay. Yeah. Just getting that representation down, right?
So in September 1791, the primary delegate, Hugh Henry Breckinridge, was an American writer, lawyer, and judge at the time, and would ultimately become the justice of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. So this is this is a prominent member of society who's a part of this meeting. He would also go on to found the University of Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Gazette. So prominent guy. He was there at this meeting. And his main goal was to prevent the outbreak of violence. He's like, look, I understand that we have a list of grievances.
He's playing bouncer.
I agree with said list of grievances, but maybe let's not go, create. Let's have a little bit of sense.
Guys, y'all saw how many people died when we did this with England. They were real far away. These people are close.
They're right next door.
It could be way worse.
They're our brothers.
Yeah.
Let's not do this. The result of this
Well, let's wait 100 years to do this.
Well, yeah. Hi-yo! The result of the first convention was that, Johnny, you were right. They're just not going to pay it.
I mean, no.
Yeah, no, please. Most distillers failed to comply with registering the stills or paying any of the taxes. But they took it one step further, Johnny, and they additionally threatened any tax collectors and anyone who housed them or gave them support. So, like, look,
not only
we're
if
not
you
going to pay
look
it, but if you come to try to collect it,
the little mom and pop hotels,
we're going to hurt you.
Like, they're not even allowed to put them up because they'll go ahead and go after them too.
They sure will, and they sure did, Johnny. On September 11th, 17...
Oh, so wait, they continued to send the tax collectors even though they told them they weren't going to pay?
Yeah, they sure did.
They're like, no, this is still law. We don't care what you just said.
Yep, they sure did, Johnny.
We're not going to listen to you.
And
you'll pay. We'll send people. Okay.
And on September 11th, 1791, the true...
Hey, never forget
the true September 11th, a tax collector, Robert Johnson, was tarred and feathered by a disguised gang in Washington County, Pennsylvania.
A disguised gang?
A disguised gang. They were wearing masks, and they catch him, and they tar and feather him.
Do you think they were Richard Nixon masks, or...
I think it's probably more like white hoods as opposed to Richard Nixon at this point.
Those are probably more readily available.
Yeah, or maybe some potato sacks or something.
Probably potato sacks.
Probably potato sacks. Yeah, with Ike. Oh my God,
that'd be pretty terrifying.
Have you ever seen the Django, the movie Django?
No, I've never seen.
They wore like potato sacks and white hoods, like KKK thing, but they cut the holes, and they couldn't cut the holes right, and they were all like, "I can't see a shit out of this thing." I imagine that's what the gang was.
Yeah. Well, but they were able to successfully tar and feather a tax collector.
They did.
They overpowered him.
They did.
Or her.
Well, it was a him, Johnny. Spoiler alert. I mean, I gave you his name, damn it. Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
Come on.
You know.
You're not listening to me. You never do.
Old Bobby Johnson.
Just like my wife.
I mean, you just say a lot of words. It's hard to catch all of them.
It's fair. So
I'm picking and choosing here.
So George Washington responded with issuing a warrant for the arrests of anybody involved in Johnson's attackers, or in Johnson's attack.
So he issued the
So George Washington issued a warrant for any of the attackers in Johnson's attack.
So to the police department in this town that's being affected, that just had the tax collector tarred and feathered, they said, "Hey, police department in that town, go ahead and arrest these guys that were in a mask."
Yes, exactly. And they responded, or the crowd responded, with whipping, tarring, and feathering any of the people who attempted to serve warrants to him. So, check.
I mean, yeah,
mission accomplished.
I mean, that's a lot more extreme than I was just going to be like. So nobody saw who did it then. Like, nope, didn't see him.
Nope, they just tarred and feathered anybody who tried to issue any warrant. Yeah, as a result, most tax collectors were removed from the western counties of Pennsylvania, and the tax went largely uncollected during 1791 until early 1792. So
it worked for
so far. Protest is working.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out refusal to pay and tarring and feathering goes a long way.
Yeah. Additionally, the Congress that met, or not Congress, I guess the unruly mob that met in this convention,
the protesters' representatives.
Yes, sure.
How about we not paint them in a ugly light, Tom?
I'm sorry, Johnny. The protesters.
Let's report this fairly.
The representatives of the grievances sent a list of said grievances to the federal government, who then agreed to lower the tax to 1 cent per gallon. So,
okay, that seems reasonable.
Reasonable, right?
Like they can do right. That's
reasonable. Johnny, what do you think the response was?
I mean, they probably said that it's fine. Right?
Yeah, except that they felt that they were living up to the American revolutionary spirit by that whole taxation without representation thing.
They got all gung ho. They all got too excited about it and just refused for anything.
Even 1 penny, we're still not doing it. Supporters of the bill said, there's a huge difference between taxation without representation by a foreign government and a tax laid by elected officials in your own country. Which, to a degree, is true.
Also fair.
But still, you still have Kentucky who's getting hosed.
Well, and I mean, maybe don't be a territory, Kentucky. What the hell? Be a state.
Become a state.
How hard can it be?
Yeah, but speaking of Kentucky, they just said, we're still not going to pay it. We aren't paying it. And they didn't pay it, Johnny.
I mean,
and nobody in the entire government could be convinced to go into the frontier of Kentucky. And I don't blame them, because Jesus Christ, it's Kentucky.
I mean, drive through it sometime.
Even now, even today, modern day Kentucky, in the backwoods of Kentucky, up in the hills.
Kentucky,
no, I'm good.
Yep. Yeah, actually, my wife went to Eastern Kentucky University, and we went around that campus. And the main building on campus, everything is downhill from it. So if you want to go to the main building, no matter where you are on campus, you have to walk uphill. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I had to go walk uphill to.
But everything's kind
both
of
ways to school.
Strange back then.
To be fair, you go to Hanover's campus, and this is a bit.
I mean, it's just small.
It's
just like going,
it has changed.
It's like walking into a different world.
It has changed so much from when we were there too. Like, because when we were there, it was a relatively conservative.
Well, we're old as hell.
I know it was a relatively conservative, like religious school. It is not that now.
Well, once they allowed alcohol on campus, I mean, what can you do?
The shoebox.
You start giving people some whiskey.
Fuck that shoebox and their boxed wine. That you couldn't get on your day. You know, we had that stupid student card thing for our lunches, which we could get food there, but you couldn't buy the booze there. Come on.
Yeah, it's like food stamps. That's basically what they gave us. Like, yeah, you could have mozzarella sticks, but you can't have a beer.
Oh, you know what, Johnny? I love it when we record this when we're drinking because we get off topic so easily. It's great.
I don't think we're that off topic.
Anyways, in 1791,
we're talking about liquor.
Yeah, we're
talking about a whiskey rebellion.
In 1792, Hamilton advocated for military action to suppress the rebellion, but Attorney General Edmund Randolph was like, yeah, you don't have any legal means to justify throwing in the military.
Sending the military out to a territory to collect taxes.
Calm the fuck down, buddy.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of funny because tarring and feathering isn't enough of a government official, isn't enough to be like, maybe we should do something about this.
Yeah.
But, you know, hey, whatever. So in August 1792, another convention was held by the protesters. This time, the moderate voices of Breckinridge said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and sit this one out. I have some political aspirations in the future, and I definitely can't be linked to something like this.
So it's just like, guys, I tried. Like, I got it down to 1 cent a gallon.
I don't know what else you could want.
Still are mad. Like, what are you trying to do to me here? Like, I did my job. It was perfect. We were fine.
We were so close.
Why are you continuing to refuse to pay it?
So there was a militant group that was known as the Mingo Creek Association that they began dominating the convention. Go figure, a convention of radicals got dominated by a militant group.
You don't say.
Huh, weird. They raised what were called liberty poles, Johnny, and I had to look this up because I'm like, what the fuck is a liberty pole? It is a wooden pole with a liberty hat on it.
Okay.
They literally raised a broomstick with a hat.
They put a hat on a stick. And that was like a big thing, and like people were like, whoa, look at that.
Better take them seriously. It's the next best thing to a flag.
Oh my god.
They formed committees of correspondence and seized controls of local militia.
Okay.
So
they created their
own Liberty
army.
Pole, whatever, taking control of the military.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. That's how you get something done.
That's how you get something done. They also created extra legal courts, extra legal courts, which means that they
not extra legal. Extra additional
legal.
Okay.
Yeah, aka they weren't legal courts. They created their own courts that discouraged lawsuits.
Be like a super legal type
no,
thing.
They discouraged lawsuits for debt collection and foreclosure. So basically, like if you got summoned to the federal court, this extra legal court would be like, no, you don't have to go.
They dismissed it.
Dismissed.
We will be hearing this other court's cases now. Please, first come this way. No.
No, we can't do that. No,
that's fine. You go ahead. You go on about your day.
So Hamilton, he responded like you would think he would with reason. He said, yeah, this shit's got to stop. So he sent tax collector official George Clymer to investigate. A little bit about Clymer. He was one of the founding fathers and advocated rebellion against England. So he's got that rebellion spirit in himself. And he was one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. So he is a prominent member of our history.
And this guy agreed to go to a town where the previous guy who went there was tarred and feathered?
Yeah, he did. And he totally fucked things up, Johnny, because knowing that the guy that was tarred and feathered, he's like, I'm going to travel in disguise. And I imagine it was that
beautiful.
Stupid, like,
he put a
fake
mustache?
plastic nose.
Yeah.
With yep.
Yeah. Nose, glasses, and mustache.
And then he went around to any of the local officials and began intimidating them, and then went back to Washington, greatly exaggerating his report to Hamilton and Washington, like, yep, they're an armed rebellion. They're shooting everybody on the street that comes there, like, just making shit up. So, of course, this is pre, like, phones and internet, so, they can't confirm anything. They just got to take this guy at his word. So Washington, viewing this whole thing as an embarrassment, which... Yep.
I mean,
sure was.
You're trying to get a penny a gallon and you're losing.
You should have called it quits.
I mean, yeah, just be like, all right, guys, we're sorry. We messed up. Like, you're right.
We'll tax shit coming in from England more.
Yep.
But he didn't. And on September 15th, 1792, he issued a statement in newspapers denouncing the protest altogether because, yep, that'd show him. Like,
oh my God.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Imagine Donald Trump coming on with his Twitter and be like, "Don't do it." Yep, everybody's listening to you.
Yep, people taking him super seriously. Guys, could you stop, please? Please. He asked nicely.
So General John Neville becomes determined to enforce this excise tax on his own.
Oh, all right. He's a real go-getter. Gonna tackle this.
He's going to tackle it head on
his own.
Yep. He's a politician in Pennsylvania. He was an ex-military officer, land speculator, and state official. He initially opposed the tax himself, but later changed his mind and determined to enforce it because he was a large-scale producer of whiskey and, would totally benefit from the smaller whiskey distributors being put out of business.
It's so strange how consistently throughout our government history, government officials continuously vote for things that benefit them and against things that hurt them and their businesses.
It is.
It's really weird. It's like they're not taking into account the public interest, but just their own. Which is weird because they're elected to take into account the public interest.
They're totally not doing their job.
I'm sure I'm just seeing things from an incorrect viewpoint, but that's just kind of how it seems sometimes.
Yeah. In August, he rented a room in Pittsburgh for his tax office, but he was later kicked out because the landlord was threatened by the Mingo Creek Association. Said, "Look, you gotta fucking go. I'm not going down with this shit."
Nope, I'm not getting tarred and feathered, pal.
Anonymous notes started to appear in newspapers, appearing under the name Tom the Tinker, which by the way will be that's my new nickname.
That is
Tom the Tinker.
Good moniker.
I like it, Tom the Tinker, which threatened anyone who complied with the law. So basically, like, even if you're just a normal, like, I bought this bottle of whiskey, and because I paid the tax for this bottle of whiskey, now I'm under threat of being screwed over.
If you go to buy a bottle of whiskey, then you give the person a penny less than what you're supposed to pay, so you're not paying the tax.
Yeah, you got to do that.
That's the way to get around it.
Otherwise, Tom the Tinker is coming for you. I want to I gotta look. I haven't looked it up, but I have to try to see in National Archives. There has to be a newspaper from 1792-ish that has Tom the Tinker in it. I want to find an actual Tom the Tinker article.
A Library of Congress.
Yeah, I've got to find one. I'm so excited about it. I need to find one. Anyways, protests continued through 1793, and multiple Neville effigies were burned. In a crowd of 100 in Washington County, Pennsylvania.
Back in the day when you still could burn effigies. The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days.
When people still allowed that.
Or when you post a meme making fun of Hitler and you get banned for 3 days from Facebook. Fucking Facebook.
It's keywords, Tommy.
Anyways, on November 22nd, 1793, men broke into the house of tax collector Benjamin Wells in Fayette County, and at gunpoint, they forced him to surrender his commission. So they're like, "Look, you're no longer a tax official. Say you're no longer a tax official." And at gunpoint, he went, "Yep."
Say it's true.
I agree wholeheartedly. I ran out of ice in my whiskey, and now this is warm.
Would you like me to get you some more ice? Maybe we could take a break.
No, I'm good.
We could take a whiskey break, or a ice break.
I need to probably slow down because I got to drive home. In a few hours.
You got time. We got the whole quarantine. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Anyways, they also, in response to this whole break-in, and you're not a tax collector, Washington offered a reward for the men's arrest, which obviously came with no success.
They keep trying the same thing.
Yeah,
isn't that the definition of sanity? Or
it's the same thing. It's the same thing that the British government did. We're like, well, this tax didn't work, so we'll try this tax. This tax didn't work, so we'll try this tax.
Guys, but if we do it again, will you pay it this time?
And they sure didn't.
What if I ask a different way?
So all-out insurrection begins, and shit hits the fan in May 1794 when federal district attorney William Rawle issues subpoenas for more than 60 distillers' arrests in Pennsylvania.
He what?
He issued subpoenas. Why is that fun? It's a subpoena.
I know, but you said it super fast the first time, and I'm not sure you got out subpoena.
He issued a bunch of penises.
That's what I heard.
For more than 60 distillers in Pennsylvania. And you betcha those have to appear in the federal court of Philadelphia. So he sent out arrest warrants for 60 distillers that have to appear in Philadelphia.
And do we have numbers of how many showed up?
Well, in June 1794, the law was modified so that local courts could take jurisdiction because Washington realized this is stupid.
No one's going to come here?
But you know those extra legal courts, Johnny, that were dissolving all this shit. They just dissolved all this shit.
I mean, yeah. It turns out when you give it to the local court, that's like, no, we get it, guys. Like that's kind of bullshit. Like what they're trying to do. They just let it go.
But a U.S. Marshal, David Lennox, was already sent out with the writ summoning them to Philadelphia. So fuck the new law. And later it would be claimed that these writs were intended to encourage them to comply with the law, not actually to appear in court. We don't want you to come to court.
Right.
We just want you to comply with the law.
Of course.
Which they didn't do.
Of course.
By July 15th, Marshal Lennox had actually delivered most of the writs without incidents. But on July 15th itself, 1794, shit kind of hit the fan. So Marshal Lennox was joined by General Neville, remember him?
Yeah,
he offered to act as the guide for Marshal Lennox because he was so loved in the territory.
Yeah, no, well he did know it well. Traveling around in his disguises, talking to all the officials.
Yep, he did. And on the evening of the 15th of 1794, while serving a writ to the Miller farm 10 miles south of Pittsburgh, warning shots were fired at the Marshal Lennox and General Neville themselves. Neville returned to his home with his tail tucked between his legs, and Lennox retreated back to his hotel in Pittsburgh.
I like the idea of them just walking down the street and someone just... And then be like, nope, and just turn right around and just like, well, we tried.
They sure did. On July 16th, 1794, 30 Mingo Creek militiamen, remember them, Johnny? They wound up surrounding Neville's fortified home, which the fact that this guy has a fortified home.
But what does that mean, though?
It is a wood, like you remember the old forts that had the wood pikes or whatever, spikes?
Yeah.
That is all around his house. So it is a fort, which is known as Bower Hill. They surrounded.
But I bet he doesn't have cannons or anything.
No.
What a bum.
Lazy.
That's a fake fortified fort if I've ever seen one.
Yep, he's preparing for the zombie apocalypse, Johnny. Or he's got lots of toilet paper.
Yeah.
They demanded the surrender of the federal marshal, who wasn't there. He's in his hotel in Pittsburgh.
No, but surrender anyway.
But never responded with reason by saying, "Hey, look, he's not here." Or he just actually opened fire on the rebels.
Said no.
And would wind up mortally wounding Oliver Miller, who was one of the rebels.
Shit. He killed him.
He hits the guy. Yeah, good for the guy. Good for him, bad for him, depending on what side you're on.
He's a murderer.
Yeah, well, 30 guys did surround his house and say, "We're going to fuck you up if you don't surrender."
Did they kill him, though?
No, they didn't.
And did he kill one of them? So who's the murderer?
So the rebels respond back with reason by opening fire on the fortified home.
Yep, okay.
In the hopes,
they just missed? Or?
Well, they hoped that they would dislodge Neville, but what they didn't count for was that Neville had a shit ton of slaves who he voluntold to help defend his home by giving them guns and shooting back.
How nice of those slaves to do that.
How nice of them, right? So the rebels...
I mean, it can't, but to be fair, it can't have been that hard to convince them. Be like... So
you're being shot at.
Those guys are shooting this way. You shoot that way.
Yeah. not a hard.
I think I do that too.
I probably would too.
You'll give me a gun in this situation. Okay, that's better than not having a gun and still being in this situation.
Yeah, I'll help. Anyways, at the end of the night of the 15th, or 16th, sorry, the rebels retreated to Couch's fort to gather more reinforcements. So on July 17th, 1794, the rebels returned to Bower Hill with nearly 600 men, commanded by a Major James McFarland. So they're like, shit's hit the fan.
I mean, that's quite the demonstration.
That's a good...
600's a big number.
So for numbers, I think the largest U.S. Army, correct me if I'm wrong, I won't really actually pay attention, was around 10,000 during the Revolutionary War. So 600 men, that's a good
little...
That's a good size.
Well, and I'm just thinking, visually, that's filling space.
That's filling space. If you look out your window, at any window in your Bower Hill house, you're going to see people.
Yeah, that's going to mess you up.
McFarland himself was a Revolutionary War veteran. He was elected the leader of the Whiskey Rebellion. My speech is getting a little bit delayed because apparently whiskey has an intoxicating effect.
What?
Crazy.
Hold on, let me... Wait. Holy shit, you're right. It says this is 45% alcohol.
Oh, you know what? Actually, that's pretty decent.
Alcohol gets you drunk.
That's actually a pretty decent list of alcohol.
Tommy, you didn't tell me we would be getting drunk today.
Well, we're there. Neville, being of sound mind, stayed in his home overnight and was reinforced by 10 U.S.
I mean,
Army...
where was he going to go?
Well, fair. He could have gone somewhere else and been like, oh, fuck this, I'm out, because they're going to come back. But no, he got reinforced by 10 U.S. Army soldiers.
Who sent these 10 folk?
10.
Who sent them?
Major Abraham Kirkpatrick, who was not Kilpatrick, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Kirkpatrick. Kilpatrick was a crazy,
very different
roommate of Johnny's, who worked at Verizon in Columbus, Indiana, for a little bit. Huh. Guy's a little bit of a nutter. Anyways, Kirkpatrick.
Okay, important distinction.
Distinguished was Neville's brother-in-law. So no bias there at all.
Not any. Yeah, that's great.
Before the rebels arrived at the home, Kirkpatrick ordered Neville to hide in the nearby ravine. Or Neville just fled.
Yeah, he bounced.
Yeah, he bounced. Additionally, a David Lennox and Neville's son also tried to return to the Neville home during the night of the 16th through the 17th, but were captured by the rebels as they approached.
Okay.
So,
well, this is
way to reinforce.
Yeah. Going well so far.
Going well so far. But everyone's not a bunch of monsters, because as the 600 men approached, they did begin in negotiations with Kirkpatrick. And negotiated that all women and children would be allowed to leave the house before either side started to fire. So, honor.
Get the women and children out of there, and then we're going to litter your home with lead.
And they did.
Oh!
they opened fire. After 1 hour of exchange gunfire, McFarland calls for a ceasefire because the rebels witnessed a white flag coming out of the Bower Hill home. This is important. There was a white flag coming out of the Bower home.
Yeah, so that's surrender. They're surrendering.
They're surrendering. As McFarland, the leader, steps into the open to discuss negotiation terms, he's immediately shot and wounded.
Psych!
Mortally wounded at that. He would later die of his wounds, and his last words were, "She was right." Which I attribute to, his wife at home was like, dude, do not go. You're going to get killed.
You're going to get yourself killed.
And he said,
Yeah.
She was right.
I'll be fine. I know how to negotiate. Trust me.
So, Trish, I know you're never going to listen to this, but if you do, you're right. I will never participate in rebellions like this. Do not worry, because I love you, and I am pussy whipped, and not afraid to admit it.
That's fair.
Enraged by this act, the rebels set fire to the home and slave quarters because they're like, fuck you, you killed our guy as you were trying to surrender. We're burning your shit. Which maybe they should have just done from the start.
Seems like it's like one of those things. I don't know. It's like a video game where
everything's made of wood.
They send the weakest people first, and then a little bit stronger, then you fight the boss. It's like, what if the boss just came out with everybody else at the same time and smash you? Why just light the damn building on fire?
So this obviously provokes the surrendering of Kirkpatrick. Because, shit's on fire, yo.
Shit's on fire.
Everything's made of wood.
This is fine.
I'm good. The reported casualties of this entire incident was 2 rebels, including McFarland, and 1 U.S. soldier who may have died of wounds received during the fight, or also may have died because, it's 1794 and you got dysentery.
Yeah, sometimes people just die.
It's not entirely clear.
And so sometimes you're walking down the street and you scratch it on a post and then you're dead.
The rebels allowed the 9 remaining U.S. soldiers to go back to Pittsburgh.
All 9 reinforcements were able to return,
which is nice of them. It's nice of them. But they kept Kirkpatrick, Lennox, and Neville's son as prisoners, who would all escape the next day.
I mean, what were they going to do with them?
I don't know.
Where were they going to keep? Like, you're our prisoners. Why?
Don't leave.
I don't know. But you're supposed to take prisoners of war, so that's what we did. Sit in that room.
Please don't leave.
But they left go out this window. All right. Well, what can you do?
I love it. On July 18th, McFarland was given a hero's funeral. Hero's funeral, Johnny. And the rebels immediately claimed that he was murdered, which he kind of was.
To be fair.
He was. Moderate voices in the rebellion were silenced by David Bradford, who would become the loud voice of the open rebellion and violent resistance. Bradford was a lawyer and deputy attorney general of Washington County. Again, a super high official who's like, yep, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, they know better. like, like this is petty stuff that just drags you down and. Ugh,
On July 26th, Bradford himself, this attorney general, would rob the U.S. mail as it left Pittsburgh, hoping to discover anybody in town who would oppose them.
Like, wait, the USPS?
Yeah.
Like
United States Postal Service.
He took their letters.
He took their mail.
And then
read all the mail.
To find out if anybody's
people
writing letters saying anything bad against him.
Yes. He found several letters denouncing the rebels of Bradford. And then he ordered initially that the militia would assemble to meet at Bradford's Fields, 8 miles of Pittsburgh, because two people in Pittsburgh said they don't support it.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's the devil.
That's fair. You know, this is like, we think, oh, that's ridiculous. Why would he rob the mail and then read it all to find? This is just what companies do, though.
Yeah, sure.
To us now, like with our email. Like,
hey, Facebook.
They see what they see what you're writing. Like
when you say, I think a microwave would be good today. And then all of a sudden, your Facebook ads are filled with microwaves.
Tom, I have Alexa in this house. Now I'm going to get microwave ads. I don't need a microwave. Alexa, I don't need a microwave.
On August 1st, 1794, 7,000 men would gather at Bradford's Field, mostly consisting of the poor, non-landowners, and non-still owners. So this is people who have nothing to do with the whiskey tax.
Everyone's just getting all excited about a rebellion.
I want to shoot at shit.
Hey, I'm bored. Guys, y'all want to gather up a mob and get mad at something?
If this quarantine lasts for 2 more weeks, we might be there,
We're going to start seeing mobs, yeah.
We might. The fury over the whiskey tax essentially rolled over to all grievances of the poor to the government. So basically, like, you're attacking the poor, fuck you, we're going to fight back. Most of the victims of the violence were the wealthy landowners, so this is kind of like a Bernie Sanders protest. And the mob was calling to march on Pittsburgh itself, or what they deemed Sodom, Sodom and Gomorrah, to loot the homes of the wealthy and burn the town to the ground.
Eat the rich.
Eat the rich.
Yes. Why haven't we done this yet?
They praised the French Revolution, which was going on at the time, and called for the guillotine to be brought over the United States because we want to chop some heads off.
Yeah. All right. These people got fired.
They got fired up. There was even talks about declaring independence from the United States. And Johnny, this is the most important part. They made a flag.
Was it better than the Confederate flag that was made 100 years later?
It is an eagle, like like kind of like our logo, eagle with the wheat and shit, surrounded by 13 stars.
Okay, that doesn't sound bad.
It's not bad. No,
it's a little Mexican flag-ish.
It's better than the stupid Confederate, what we call the Confederate flag now, which is bars. Looks like suspenders with some stars on it.
Yeah.
It's better than that.
So we almost had a civil war.
We did.
100 years before a civil war. Well, what, 80?
80 some odd. Yeah, whatever. We're not going to calculate the math because we've been drinking whiskey.
It's 86.
A quarter of the bottle gone, by the way. Pittsburgh responded by banishing the 3 men who wrote the letters and gave offense to the rebels. They said, get the fuck out. And they got the fuck out.
No.
Bradford urged the men to a defiance protest march through Pittsburgh instead of like rampant burning.
Don't burn it down, just walk through it, guys.
Yes.
And they'll see your numbers and be like, okay, well, maybe they're serious.
It did result in Kirkpatrick's farm being burned down, but no other damage. So they burned Kirkpatrick's farm, but they left the entire city of Pittsburgh.
That was probably accidental.
Super accidental.
I'm guessing somebody just had a cigarette and then threw it over into the hay bales.
God, this is going to be a long episode, Johnny. We're 48 minutes in, and I still have 2 pages of notes.
Oh, I thought we were wrapping up.
So the federal response was that Washington, viewing the rebellion as an armed insurrection, was forced to act. They kind of have to at this point. People are burning shit. Towns are being occupied. We kind of have to do something.
Yeah, this is starting to turn into a situation.
On August 14, 1794, another convention was held by the rebels, and they agreed to send a committee to meet with peace commissioners. So they're trying to, we're trying to do peace.
Yeah, it seems like they're a little beyond that.
Yeah, they kind of are, because the entire cabinet of Washington, George Washington that is, decided that military force was the only way to go, except for Secretary of State.
Shocking that you put a military person in charge of the country and you make the president the head of the military, and
that he wants to use the military?
All they want to do is use the military.
So,
it's like when your only tool is a hammer.
Yeah.
Everything looks like a nail.
But to be fair, Secretary of State Edmund Randolph was like, look, we can do something else. Please let's send peace commissioners. So Washington did both. He sent peace commissioners to negotiate with the rebels, but also sent a military expedition to suppress further violence.
Seems like maybe we ought to still send a lot of troops.
So he did both. Hamilton himself began publishing articles in Philadelphia under the name Tully, who denounced the mob rebellion because the pussy couldn't even put an article under his own name. Tully. Jackass. Tully. Not nearly as awesome as Tom the Tinker.
Pseudonyms were just fashionable at the time, I think.
On August 4th, 1794, the Supreme Court ruled that Western Pennsylvania to be an open rebellion and authorized military action with the Militia Act of 1792, which authorized the federal government to take control over state militias. So the Militia Act of 1792 said, hey, look, if you need to form a federal military, you can use state militias. So he did. Keep in mind, most of these state militias were already under rebellion.
I was just going to say, weren't most of these militias the ones that were gathered up by that one dude? And then, like, now
they sure were, Johnny.
And on August... They're like, no, you're going to fight for us? No.
August 7th, 1794, Washington issued a statement that with his deepest regret, Johnny,
so regretful.
Deepest regretful, he authorized the militia to suppress the rebellion and commanded the rebels dispersed by September 1st.
Really hate that I got to do this, guys. I mean, it was my idea from the beginning. Really hate that I have to do it, though.
But please disperse by September 1st. Meanwhile, negotiations were actually ongoing since the beginning of August 1794. Basically, through these negotiations, the Committee of Peace Commissioners must unanimously agree to stop the violence in exchange to follow all U.S. laws, and no further criminal prosecution would happen.
Okay.
So basically, if everybody would vote to stop it, we'll just let it be at that. Pay the tax. You're fine.
All right.
Not even back taxes, Johnny. Just start paying taxes now.
They've got to know they're not getting any back taxes.
The committee was mixed about this whole proposal, but they agreed to have a general referendum. And on September 11th, again, the true September 11th, never forget, 1794, it happened with mixed results. Most townships were like, deal, I'll pay your stupid 1 cent tax.
I mean, at this point, they got to just be done with it.
I did shoot a few people and tar and feather a few people.
Some people are dead.
We're done.
Yeah, but that's a sacrifice I was willing to make.
But there were a few holdouts, Johnny, and on September 24th, 1794, Washington received the recommendation from his commissioners that in their judgment, quote, it was necessary that the civil authority should be aided by a military force in order to secure a due execution of the laws.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't win this election, by outright numbers, so we're going to force it through military action.
Huh.
Weird.
So, I'm glad nothing like that happens today where we just vote and whoever wins the most votes wins. True democracy, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
Sure.
I'm glad we solved all these issues.
We sure solved them. The Western Committee sent Representatives William Findley and David Reddick to meet Washington to halt all military advancements. But on September 25th, Washington ordered the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia militias into service and warned that anyone aiding the insurgents, would do so at their own peril. So basically, we're all at war now.
Threaten them, yeah.
We're at war.
Yeah, pick a side, and you'll either get tarred and feathered or killed.
The federalized militia at this point, or standing army, would consist of 12,950 men. So larger than the Revolution.
Yeah.
Super huge on scale.
Were these all the people, though, that were already joined up, or are these the ones that they were able to get?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, any able-bodied man was supposed to report every, month to do military duty. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, nobody really wanted to do that.
You don't say.
And nobody wanted to volunteer for military service, so they implemented a draft.
What?
Surprisingly, nobody was in favor of said draft to fight their own people. And rampant and local riots and protests ensued, including in eastern regions. So basically, at this point, even Philadelphia is like, no, we're not going to do this.
This is stupid. Tax something else.
3 counties in eastern Virginia actually had an armed draft resistance. So basically, people who said, I'm not going to fight for the U.S., I'm going to fight for my own beliefs, said, screw you, armed up, which resulted in 800 men being sent to quash the anti-draft riot in Hagerstown, Pennsylvania, with 150 men being arrested. You know what, Johnny? They raised those liberty poles again.
I like the idea of people going to a draft protest, and like the people who have to go and squash that protest are also the ones that are like, hey, and then once this is all done, we're still going to draft you, and then you can come do this with us. This will be great. It'll be super fun.
In Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Sorry about the baton to your head.
Well, we'll get there, Johnny, because you're not far off. In Carlisle, Pennsylvania, military officials killed 2 civilians in these draft protests. And on September 29, 1794, an unarmed child, was shot after police officers' pistol accidentally fired.
Oh, Jesus.
2 days later, another civilian was...
So not literally... This country's been the same shithole for the past 300 years.
Sure has been, Johnny.
208 years, whatever.
2 days later, another civilian official was bayoneted to death by a soldier when they resisted arrest.
I know it's not more funny but it seems more funny because it's a bayonet.
It's not actually a shot.
I don't know. It's just a...
You were pokey to death.
It's just such an antiquated, weapon.
It is. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Washington ordered the soldier and the police officer responsible for the civilian and the child's death to be arrested, and both of which were acquitted from their charges because they were deemed accidental.
Yeah, you don't say.
Very much like what we have today.
Yeah.
Weird.
Whoops.
On September 30th, 1794, Washington met up with the Army to see the progress of the expedition, and it marks the only time in history, in U.S. history, that a sitting president led soldiers in the field. So.
Okay. And that's it, huh?
Yeah. Along the way, he ordered the militia to mobilize in Carlisle, the same place that people got killed.
Yeah.
On October 9th, he reviewed the Southern Army at Fort Cumberland in Maryland, and then he returned to the capital after placing General Lighthorse, Harry Lee, awesome nickname, Lighthorse.
That's pretty good.
In charge of the army. He was actually a Virginia governor and he was a hero of the Revolutionary War as well, but also the Virginia governor. This massive show of force forced the protesters, without any kind of formal shots being fired by either sides, to be like, yeah, okay, you guys are serious. You do have 12,000 men lined up.
Fine.
To my 600. Fine. Maybe I'll pay your stupid freaking 1 cent tax. We'll go home. Many of the original leaders of this rebellion, including David Bradford, would actually wind up fleeing westward to avoid prosecution. David Bradford himself would eventually flee to Spanish-owned western Florida, the fucking Panhandle.
Ugh. Hey, but western, so maybe he was in the Gulf.
No, he's in the Panhandle,
Yeah,
Johnny.
but on the Gulf.
Ugh, it's still the Panhandle.
Like Destin?
It's a Panhandle, Johnny.
Destin's nice.
Ugh. Anyways.
I'm just kidding. All of Florida's just a trash swamp.
It's a trash swamp. David Bradford himself actually would, though, be later acquitted and pardoned by President Adams, who was against this whole damn thing to begin with. Said, look, we really probably shouldn't tax these people on whiskey, and would become president. And
guys, I promise you this will end poorly if we do this.
And this is why I love Adams.
And this is what, 3 years later?
Yeah, he is the most forward-thinking person. He's like, look, we can't, there's the thing called law. We have to follow this thing called law.
We can try
and you're not doing it.
But it's going to make people mad.
So please stop.
Yeah, it's gonna make
I love Adams. He probably is the best president.
I mean, I've not done a ranking.
I know you've not. You probably could even name 10 presidents.
I was going to say he's going to be part of my top 5 though now.
You can only name 5. It's fine. It's okay. Most rebels actually would wind up being acquitted of any of their charges due to mistaken identity, unreliable testimony, or lack of witnesses.
I mean,
because
that's like the least shocking thing ever.
They're wearing masks.
Did anybody see him do this? No, no one's coming forward. Well,
okay, good enough.
It's a lack of evidence.
A total of 2,000 rebels would flee westward over the mountains, greatly annoying Hamilton. But he would soon get over it with a case of lead poisoning because, burr. A total of 20 rebels would be caught, 20 out of 2,000, so 10%. Wait, no, 1%.
Yep,
1%. I'm good at math. On Christmas Day, 1794, these 20 rebels would be
executed.
Paraded through Philadelphia,
tarred and feathered,
as the Philadelphia church bells were ringing.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's pretty weak sauce.
I know.
That's not head on Finn's post type messages.
No, it's not. There. It's not. Neville himself actually reported that he felt sorry for these men. You probably should, you jackass. You tried to shut them out of business, and you're responsible for this entire mess. Of those 20,
I feel bad.
Now I feel bad. Of those 20 men, only two, Johnny, would actually be convicted of anything. They would be sentenced to death. Their names were John Mitchell and Philip Weigel. But Washington actually pardoned them prior to their death because, he also recognized that this was stupid.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania State Court was more successful at prosecuting some random rebels for, minor charges of vandalism and burglary, as opposed to, treason.
People needing to slap someone.
Yep. John Adams himself would be elected in 1800, in large part due to his opposition to the tax. So he would be elected because he opposed it.
Hey guys, remember when you guys were doing this? I said no.
In 1802, he repealed the distilled spirit excise tax and all other internal federal tax. Again, I love Adams. Until the War of 1812, the federal government relied solely on the imports of tariffs for revenue, which quickly grew due to the increased foreign trade. So basically, as the United States established itself, started importing shit from Germany, France, England, they got their taxes met.
Huh.
Weird.
I wonder when that stopped. Surely not when American businessmen started sending their businesses overseas and then importing their own goods back, and then didn't like that they were paying more to do that, and so they paid the government to get rid of that. That didn't happen, right?
That didn't happen. No, this never happened, Johnny.
That's good.
Oh yeah, and by the way, most of that debt we talked about, the $75 million that was owed, or the 1.2 trillion today,
equivalent.
Most of that was held by the French crown, which the monarchy in France fell. And when Adams became the president in 1800, he decided that, look, we're paying a debt that technically no longer exists because the party that we owe the debt to no longer exists. So they just stopped paying it.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
I owed the monarchy. Yes, could you please give me the address to your current monarchy?
No, you don't have
one?
So
nowhere to send it?
I didn't know the democracy of France. I owed the monarchy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did your current government lend me the money? No.
All right, well, screw you then. To wrap it all up, the official casualty report, Johnny, for this entire war, which lasted 3 years, was 3 to 4 rebels, 2 civilians, and 12 U.S. soldiers, most likely that died due to disease or accidents.
They accidentally died in a crossfire,
yeah, well, or
just tripped and fell during
malaria or dysentery or God knows what.
Tripped, fell, scratched a knee, and died 3 days later.
Yep, sure did.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Historic Hindsight. Every week, we take a look at some of the major events that took place during this week in a segment that we like to call This Week in History.
Throttle up.
All right, Johnny. First up this week, I've got the Sugar Act of 1764, which happened.
Sugar Act.
Sugar Act.
Sugar. Like System of a Down sugar?
No,
you know that song?
Yeah, but this is just sugar.
Oh, okay. All right.
Or specifically molasses, because, molasses, I guess. I don't know. It happened on April 5th, 1764.
Okay, so why did we need a Sugar Act? Why do we need an act for sugar?
So this is also known as the American Duties Act, which was a revenue-raising scheme.
So it was to get money for the government.
Yes,
okay.
It was a revenue-raising scheme passed by the Parliament of Great Britain in 1764. So, this might be partly responsible for us saying, you know what, screw you, Britain.
Just another way of them taxing us for something.
Exactly.
For sugar cane or molasses or whatever the heck we were.
So the preamble of this, I looked it up. The preambles of this article states, quote, "It is expedient that the new provisions of the regulations should be established for the improvement of the revenue of this kingdom, Okay. And it is just and necessary, Johnny,
necessary
and just, that a revenue scheme should be raised for defraying the expenses of defending, protecting, and securing the same colonies of the United States of America.
So they're saying basically, I mean, this is protection money.
We just fought the French and Indian War.
Let me tell
you, it cost some money.
It's expensive to protect you. We're gonna need some more money. We're gonna tax the sugar cane coming in.
Fucking right. Johnny, I love you. Fucking, that's great.
Isn't that what that's what they did?
That's exactly what they did.
Bullies.
Johnny, you're my hero now. I love that. It was actually, in fact, the second act in an attempt to tax sugar being imported to the colonies. The first act was the Molasses Act of 1733, which charged 6 pence. I don't have any idea what that is.
None the richer.
But 6 pence per gallon of molasses, but went largely uncollected, like the whiskey tax, because, screw you. I'm not going to pay it.
Yeah,
Make me.
Come and get it.
The Sugar Act attempted to make this act more successful by reducing the tax by 50%. So now instead of the whole 6 pence, it's now 3 pence.
So again, this is just people being like, pay this money. No. Pay a little less. No.
But this time the British Crown actually put in enforcers to try to enforce it, and would catch the rum runners or the molasses runners. Because molasses at this point was mostly used for rum, because Americans love to drink. It's weird.
I mean, what the hell else was there to do during the 17 and 1800s?
There's a 0% chance I'm drunk at this right now. Anyways, God, Miller Lite. You taste like water.
So bad.
It is so bad. Hey, look, I drink Hams Light at home because it's $11 for 30, and Trish tried to explain to me that that doesn't make sense mathematically, because it takes 6 cans of of Hams Light to get me drunk versus the 4 of a normal beer. So mathematically, I'm not really saving any money.
Yeah, you just got to do a cross division.
But still, I feel like I save money.
You cross multiply and divide to figure it out, Tom.
Johnny,
it's not that hard.
It makes me feel better. Leave me alone.
All right.
Anyways, back to the Sugar Act. It didn't work.
Oh, no?
No. And it definitely added fuel to the growing movement that would become the American Revolution. You can't tax us without us at least having somewhat of a say of this.
I like that we gave him, what year was that? 1762 or something like that? 4 or something?
Yeah, 1764.
Okay, so we gave him 12 years of them being we're going to tax you. And we're like, no. And they're like, yes. And we're just like, guys, quit asking.
And the Crown tried to make things better, because in 1766 they repealed the act and replaced it with the Revenue Act of 1766, which reduced the price to 1 penny per gallon. So
that seems to be the going rate.
It's like the going rate of we do a penny rate per gallon, and it's still somehow too much.
This is Office Space, where they come up with an algorithm that rounds up the pennies or whatever, just rounds it off. And then they're off by a couple decimal points, and all of a sudden it's several $100,000.
It's like Superman 3, Johnny.
But yeah, it's they're like, all we need is just 1 penny. You can't. Yeah, I mean, you can't be mad at a penny, right?
But they were mad about a penny. Our second thing for the week, Johnny, is the Air France robbery, which happened April 7th through 8th, 1967.
Air France got robbed?
Air France got robbed.
In the air?
No, no. This was their
I was gonna say, that sounds like a heist
terminal,
movie.
Airport terminal. Well, it is. There was some
okay.
made about this. Anyways, it was a major robbery by the Luchuza crime family, mafia.
Yeah.
Because mafia steals shit. Weird.
You gotta get money somehow.
They would steal 420 million or thousand. Sorry.
Oh
no, million.
What?
No, thousand.
All right, you're off by a big factor.
It is $420,000, or the equivalent of $3.2 million today.
Okay, I was gonna say that's a factor of 100, Tommy.
Yeah, I screwed it up. Difference. I screwed it up. $420,000, or $3.2 million today in 1967.
Pretty good heist.
From the Air France cargo terminal at the New York City's JFK Airport.
Okay.
So this is actually this could have been its own story in itself, because when I was researching this, hilarious.
So But the Air France terminal had that much cash.
So here's what was going on, Johnny.
Steal?
What France had a lot of colonies in.
Oh, you're not going to ask me leading historical questions.
All right, I was, but I'm gonna stop.
I mean, you can. I'm not going to be able to answer them.
France had a lot of territories in Africa and Asia, right?
Sure,
you're right. So they did. So Air France was the carrier for American currency that had been exchanged in Southeast Asia.
Ah, okay.
It was the airline that was contracted to carry the money from Southeast Asia to deposit in American banks in the United States.
Okay.
So everything basically in Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, would be deposited in the United States.
Yeah.
Yep. There was an inside man named Robert McMahon, who told the mobster Henry Hill that 3 or 4 men would be possible to overtake this airline with some pistols.
Yeah. They're like, hey guys, this shit is not secure.
They
just kind of trust that no one's going to do anything.
It is not secure. McHannon introduced the guard that had the only key to the vault to a high-end prostitute, which distracted them long enough for Hill to steal the key and then make a copy.
Okay. I took a tour of the red light district in Amsterdam when we were there, and the tour guide was talking about, all the prostitutes in the windows and everything. And he's like,
did you get a hooker, John?
No, God, no.
I would have got a hooker.
No, but
not now because I'm
the average amount of time a person is in there with these prostitutes is 6 minutes. And that includes because they clean and inspect and then do their business and then
that is a lot of overhead for these prostitutes.
So what I'm saying, that's pretty quick. So 6 minutes isn't a lot of time. So how experienced was this prostitute if she was able to distract him enough to make a key in that time? Because I'm guessing he had to go 8,000 miles away to the only key manufacturer in the world at this time?
He had to go to Menards.
I guess maybe.
So she wasn't that great of a high-end prostitute.
I'm just saying maybe she was more of the date type prostitute than the get the job done type prostitute.
That's perhaps
maybe a high-end escort would be a better term.
Okay, fine. High-end escorts.
Not to be pedantic.
In any case. Once the copy of the key was made, McMahon let Hill know that there was a shipment of between $400,000 and $700,000 coming in on Friday, April 7th. On the night of April 7th, the morning of April 8th, Hill drove to the airport with Tommy DeSimone and with the largest suitcase that they could buy. So they wound up going to Walmart. This is the
largest suitcase that money can buy.
It is the largest suitcase that money can buy. And they determined that the best course of action would just be to walk up to the terminal as if they lost luggage.
Sure, yeah.
Sure. They entered the facility unchallenged at 11:40 p.m. on April 7th. And just they just walked in. Nobody stopped them. Nobody questioned them. Nobody even was like, hey, what are you doing here?
No, this is a good example of if you act like you're supposed to be there, one's gonna care. You can literally it maybe not so much anymore, but in the 90s and the 80s before that, if you just walked with confidence, no one's gonna question you.
They didn't, Johnny. Nobody questioned them. They unlocked the door with a copied key, and they loaded several bags of cash into their suitcase, as much as the suitcase would fit. Not all of it, but as much as the suitcase would fit.
Unfortunately, they couldn't purchase a larger suitcase because there were none available.
The facility had no alarms.
They should have paid the extra $50 for to have a second bag.
Yeah, they should have had a second bag, yeah.
And then they could have taken even more. They would have gotten their money back.
They would have. The facility had no alarms. No guards no guards acknowledged their existence. No alarm was raised. Nothing happened. They walked in, unlocked the door, loaded up a suitcase with money, and then left.
Do you suppose that everybody on the security team was fired the next day?
I don't know. It wasn't.
I would hope so.
I would hope so, but I don't know. The money itself was not discovered until the next day when the Wells Fargo wagon truck arrived to pick up the money, and $400 and some odd were missing.
Oh my God. So you guys got it all here? Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's all. We're missing $400,000. Have you seen it?
Now, to be fair, I worked for Garda Cash Logistics, which is like Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Back a few years ago, and I would just scan shit. So if they said $420,000 were there, I scanned it and I went. I didn't actually count the shit.
Yes, but would you have been able to recognize that $400,000 were missing?
I mean, that's a few bricks of cash.
I mean, it's not like they were off by a couple hundred.
It's a few bricks of cash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's not a couple 20s missing from that stack.
Well, anyways, there was a shit ton of money missing, and well, ultimately Hill would wind up like turning state's evidence and testifying against a bunch of people when he was caught.
Oh, they
later.
Yeah, they caught him and got him talking.
Yeah,
squealing
he
like
was
a
not
pig.
a good mobster. He did not keep his fucking mouth shut. All right, Johnny, our last thing, and this is a fun thing. It's very fun. I normally don't do fun things.
I like fun things.
But you like fun things, and you'll like this because I know you like the show. Parks and Recreation would air on NBC for the first time on April 9th, 2009.
Great
Parks
show.
and Recreation. I love this show. It is actually
this might be the most recent history item we've done.
It is specifically the most recent item. I only did it because I actually do really love Parks and Recreation.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's great. The wife hates it, but whatever. She hates anything like, she doesn't like anything like Office Space.
She's not a fan of like
that style
workspace comedies.
Yeah, like that, like the
just workspace sitcoms.
What's that show you watch all the time?
The
Johnny?
Office.
The Office. Yeah, she doesn't like that.
Yeah, so she likes like the exact opposite of the TV that
she likes crime mysteries where she can learn how to murder her husband with getting away with it. Yeah,
or at least learn because my wife watches I Almost Got Away with It, and I think she does it to watch for where they went wrong so she cannot make those same mistakes.
I get it.
But Parks and Rec, I mean that's like a generational show. Like it's going to be one of those that lives on.
If for whatever reason you haven't seen it, which if you haven't seen it, please Netflix that shit. I think it's on Netflix.
It is, yeah, but also like give it a chance.
Yeah,
it takes time to build.
Give it 2 seasons.
Yeah,
the first season had horrible reviews.
Well, and it's because it's a character-based workspace comedy. They're trying to figure out the characters. Yep. They did not have them ironed out the first season.
No, they
second season they iron them out, get figured out, and it just gets better from there.
It sure does. So if you want, just start at the second season. That's fine. You don't miss anything for the first.
Nah, you'll figure it out.
So it is a glorious political satire show that took place in the fictional town of Pawnee, Indiana, which is another reason why it's great because me and Johnny come from Indiana. Well, that's a connection
point. Yeah, I mean, and they do a lot of things that are very Midwest type.
It is exactly like any small town Indiana.
It is. They really do nail kind of the small town Midwest folky type of things that people get upset about and get interested in and do and.
They sure did. Stuff. It ran 125 episodes with a series finale on February 24th, 2015.
Yeah.
Just a random fun fact, April Ludgate was specifically written for Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
God, and you know what? I'm sorry. Super hot, love her. I don't know why, but there's something about her that just not Aubrey Plaza herself, but April Ludgate.
Which is kind of Aubrey Plaza.
It really pretty much is the same person.
It's a caricature of Aubrey Plaza.
And the only other note I have for this whole thing is long live Lil Sebastian.
And that's This Week in History.